neighbors. He entered the house for a few minutes. We were the young people standing waiting for the motorcade. The motorcade left after a few minutes from the house of Raddam. I don't remember exactly for how long, but because we were young and excited about the president being in our city, so I don't remember exactly how long he stayed in the house of Raddam. He left Raddam's house to the highway, as I indicated before, and he reached the area of the farms that had orange trees and palm trees, and the palm trees at least are 100 or 200 years. So he went to a den, the palm trees farm area close to the Ibrahimiyya school, and we heard fire shooting, and maybe if you were to count them, maybe about 15-20 shots, no more. After that, there was random and heavy shooting that frightened and scared people, and the soldiers and the police started to hit people with the weapons, and I was one who was struck with the back of a weapon, and also with the weapon were hit. My niece was one wounded who was moved to a hospital. Her name was Batul. My niece was one wounded who was moved to a hospital. Her name was Batul Muhammad Hassan Muhammad Al-Haydari. This is another story. After I finish talking about this incident, this is another story. After I finish talking about this incident, after the area was under heavy random shooting with different kinds of weapons, whether it was, I came to know those kinds of weapons after I served in the military. Those were automatic weapons on jeep vehicles that were to be used against tanks, and also the helicopters were hitting on the farms. My brother was one of those who were working in the farm. Hassan Muhammad Al-Haydari is my brother. He was hit in that incident. He had more than 33 shrapnels on his left side. We did not know that he was hit. Nobody could leave his house at that time, especially families that are of the conservative families in the jail. After some time, during that night, the Thursday, Friday evening, they raided the security intelligence and the National Guard and people with military fatigue and plain clothes, with also people with the popular army uniform. They came and raided. They acted as guides. At that time, I only saw Dujaili man. He is dead now. I don't want to mention his name. He was there in the raid. They saw a hunting rifle at her house, and they confiscated it, and they asked my father, Hassan Muhammad Abdullah. He was born in 1905. He was 77 years old. They asked him to go with them to the party headquarters. One of the men said, "Leave him alone. He will come in the morning. He's an old man." They told him at 9 o'clock in the morning, "You come." Who said so? One of those who came. We only knew one person. What's his name? His name is Abdullah Aboud Al-Haybi. He is dead now. Al-Haybi. Yes, go ahead. The next morning, my father did not go because he knows the methods. There were earlier incidents where we came to know the methods and the methodologies and the tactics of the security forces. Your Honor, is this his testimony or his father's? This is my statement. After my father refused to go, Friday afternoon, where my family, all of my family were fasting. It was Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan. There were 6 boys and 4 girls, and my father and mother, we were all at home. They raided us after they broke in the outside door. Those who entered the house, we did not know who they were. From the popular army, from the security, they were strangers. We did not know any of them. They entered shouting and yelling. It was intimidating and frightening. When I remember that, God is my witness, I immediately get a depression and frustration when I remember and recall that incident. They said we will only, and this is how they did it with all the families of the jail. They said, we want you only for 5 minutes for some questioning. They took us all. The father is 77 years old. The youngest was 6 years old. Ibrahim was born in 1976, so he was at that time 6 years old. My brother Jawad was born 1971, so he was about 11 years old. Mahmoud was executed. My brother Muhsin was executed. My brother Ahmed was, and my 4 sisters, Suad, Zainab, Layla, and Asma. And my mother, Majouda Shukr Mahmoud, and my father, Haj Hassan Muhammad Hassan Al-Haidari. If you allow me, Your Honor, I'd like some water, please. They took us to the party headquarters. They took us in cars. I think they were Mercedes cars belonging to the security, I think. They took us to the party headquarters that was in Asri Street, close to the Sharq Center. We entered the party headquarters as if it's the day after the day of judgment. We had people who had their head covers. We had people who were blindfolded with white piece of cloth or black piece of cloth. We as a family, we walked through bodies, dead bodies, in the outside hallway of the party headquarters at the door. They wanted us to identify the bodies. We knew who the bodies were because they are our
We are watching testimony from the first witness today as the trial of Saddam Hussein and 7 co-defendants has resumed. These are the first pictures that we have received. As usual, we're receiving them with a 20-minute delay, at least a 20-minute delay. This is what happened more than 20 minutes ago at the beginning of the trial, the beginning of the testimony of Ali Hassan Mohammed Al-Haidari. I'd like to bring in an expert that we have brought here to put things in perspective for us, Mark Ellis from the International Bar Association. He'll be joining us in just a moment to tell us a little bit more about the significance of what we are watching. We're watching some very emotional testimony from this man. He is now 37 years old. He says that he works in the media. At the time of the Dujail killings and atrocities, he was 14 years old, and he is sharing his recollections of that fateful day in 1982 when there was a failed assassination attempt against Saddam Hussein, the now deposed Iraqi president, as a result of which the Dujail atrocities allegedly occurred, atrocities that scarred him as a young boy, as we hear him bring him here as we are hearing him testify here. I'd like to go now to Mark Ellis. He is now joining us from London to talk a little bit more about what we heard before al-Haidari started testifying, and that was a review of several motions that have been brought, several appeal motions. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about the significance of what we saw at the beginning of this video, and that is those appeal motions which were reviewed by the Chief Judge.
I thought that was very important because if you remember the last time we were watching these court proceedings, there was I think confusion as to how these motions were going to be handled. What was the process for the defense to bring up these motions? Were the judges going to deal with this in writing? Was it going to listen to oral arguments? And it seems to me that the judges have now settled into a process here. So we now have heard that there were in fact motions made, that the motions were decided by the trial court, and in fact it moved up to the appellate court, who also made the decision, and this dealt with the whether or not foreign counsel would be permitted to participate in these trials. Not a surprising decision. I think that was consistent with the statute, consistent with international law. But the fact is that they seem now to be setting forth a procedure consistent with their own court procedures on how to deal with these motions, and that I think is exceedingly important to be able to show the legal foundations for the decisions that are being made.
And do you think that we're seeing more control of the proceedings in the courtroom?
Well, I think so. You saw a little bit of that when one of the defendants stood up and was beginning to argue a number of different points that the judge, Rizgar, did not feel were relevant to the proceedings, and I thought the judge was quite firm to say, you will have your opportunity to speak, you will have an opportunity to present these issues in writing, but for now we're moving on with the court proceedings and we're moving on with witnesses. I think that's a favorable development, and one that shows that the judges are getting more comfortable with controlling the court proceedings, and that to me is exceedingly important.
Although even if you look at the way this court, these proceedings are set, the rules of these proceedings allow defendants to talk to the judge, to address the witnesses. This is a different kind of procedure, and it lends itself to the judge having more challenges to keeping control, it seems to me.
Yes, and this is one of the unique aspects of this trial. It's more of a hybrid trial, so you have court proceedings, so you have both domestic law, including their procedural law, the Iraqi procedural law, and international law combined. And so the ability for defense attorneys and even defendants to seek or to question on different issues is something that's permitted, but it is to the discretion of the judge to decide how far they will permit the defendants to move in that direction. And I do think, though, very importantly, in the statute or in the rules of procedures for the court, a defendant is not able to make any direct comments or question a witness unless it's through the court itself. And I believe that that's where you'll get a better sense of the judges taking control over it. You cannot have a repeat of where Saddam Hussein or defendants were able to question or even badger a witness. That, I think, is unacceptable. But again, I think you'll get a better sense as these judges have a better handle on how they're going to make this balance and how they're going to control the decorum of the court.